Welcome to Motherhood, Aligned and Assigned, where we help guide mothers from symptoms to solutions.
We're Dr. Serena Coffman and Dr. Veronica Schiltz, nervous system specialists helping families discover the missing link in their wellness journey.
Join us as we translate complex health challenges into simple, actionable solutions for you and your children.
Because your family deserves to thrive,
not just survive. I'm going to paint you a picture, and I want you to pretend you're at the grocery store. And you are walking past, the dreaded aisles at the very end where there's like everything that your kids want but can't have. Yeah, you're walking past that. And your kiddo reaches for something. You tell him or her to put it back, and it becomes this knockdown, drag out fight. Your child loses it, screaming, kicking, flailing on the floor, and every parent in the aisle, and maybe even in the world, feels like seems to be watching you. You tried reasoning, you tried bribing, you tried consequence. Nothing works. You leave with a red face, a racing heart, and the same thought you've had for weeks. What am I doing wrong? And maybe even, why did I even leave the house? The answer, you're probably not doing anything wrong. And the reason why leaving the house feels like such a struggle is because what you're seeing is a meltdown and not a tantrum. And we're going to talk a little bit more in this episode about how different, very, very different those two things are, even though we sometimes use them pretty interchangeably. You're not using the wrong strategy, you're using the wrong playbook. And today I'm going to teach you the difference and why it matters so much for your child's brain, body, and future.
Yeah, we've all seen it, the epic public meltdown. Mm-hmm. Most of us have experienced it if we have kids. But what most people don't realize is this isn't always just bad behavior or a spoiled kid syndrome situation going on, right? A lot of times, these are neurological shutdowns. And Dr. Veronica, I don't know about you, but now I can kind of pick out in the store when I see this happening of like, oh, this mom is doing great. Her kid is just really overwhelmed. I could use some chiropractic care. Maybe I should, like, in those moments, like, hey, this probably isn't a good time, but here's my card. No, probably not.
I've thought about that, but I've been so terrified.
Yeah. Moms, comment in the comments if you can do that. Like, would you want us to support you in that way? No, it would just seem judgy.
I see your kids. Yeah, right.
It's like, no, I would say, like, hey, I think you're doing great. And his body might just be really overwhelmed. And this is what I do. Check out our podcast. No.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Moms, tell us in the comments if that's a terrible idea.
I feel like if someone did that to me, I'd be like, what do you mean you know it? You don't even know my kid. So I feel like that's my own mindset issues. But anyways.
True. Yeah, I'd be like, how do you know that I'm a good mom?
Maybe tell us in the comments and comment, right, what you would like to hear from someone like me or Dr. Serena, right? Who is like, okay, we see this and we hate to walk by and do nothing, but also we know how embarrassing it is because, my toddler has tantrums too. What would be helpful?
Yeah.
If we just anyways.
Yeah, because, it's common. 1 in 6 children struggle with behavior, sensory overload or dysregulation, emotional regulation. And we see it in our office every week, right? So we see the parents who have tried every sticker chart, every consequence and reward, and still nothing is changing, right? They've like given up gentle parenting. They've like switched to be like, wait, maybe I was permissive parenting and I really need to create boundaries. And still it's like, it's not a boundary issue. It's not a discipline issue, even though you might be feeling that. The problem isn't parenting. It's the nervous system, essentially, right? So tantrums are behavioral. I will say that, right? They're tactical. The child is trying to get a result. And a lot of parents will say babies don't know how to manipulate. And it's not that. Humans and human behavior learns by, like, I'll behave where there is a reward, right? So that's a tantrum. It's like, I want that thing. And what has gotten me that thing in the past, or what might give me that thing, is this behavior, right? And then when it doesn't work repeatedly, they're like, okay, I'll give that up, right? Like my 2-year-old had a very brief tantrum season where he like threw himself on the ground and like screamed just in our house, thank goodness, to like see if that would help get what he wanted. And then didn't work, and he quickly within a week moved on to different strategies, right? So
adaptability.
Yeah. He's like, okay, next I'll be cute. That does work a little better actually. Right, so the tantrums are behavioral. Right, they're like, okay, how can I control the situation to get what I want? Meltdowns are neurological. right? They're full body shutdown caused by sensory overload. And this is not willful disobedience, right? It's not bribe or threat or consequences not going to pull them out. And I think a lot of moms have experienced that. They're like, you're trying to reason with your kid. You're like, okay, I'll give you this if you just stop making so much noise. And you're just not getting through, right? There's no more sensory or auditory processing because they've just gone into full fight or flight mode. So here's what's happening. The brain goes offline. In fight or flight mode is where the nervous system is now operating. And it's like a computer crashing because there's too many apps or tabs open, or your phone crashing because there's too many apps open, right? It can't do what's in front of it and what you're asking it to do because there's so much going on in the background. It's just shut down.
Can I also add in here?
Yeah.
We love that analogy, but even to take that a step further, do you know how when your phone like freezes and the more you push buttons, the worse it gets until you just have to like shut the whole phone off and try again, right? Obviously, we're not gonna shut the whole kids off, but that's essentially what chiropractic does is that reset button, because it's your phone is not going to start doing what you want it to until after it is cleared of said stress and apps. Same thing for your kid. Yeah,
exactly. Okay, so these patterns that we're talking about, like a shutdown doesn't come out of nowhere. These patterns kind of build up over time, or what we've talked about time and time again is what we call the perfect storm, right? We have prenatal stress. Mom's stress hormones cross the placenta, right? So baby perceives and gets the cortisol that we get. And that's not, again, not to make you feel bad. That's just life. That's just how it happens, right? So the emotional, physical, chemical stress that mom feels when she's pregnant, if we don't have a way to process that, if it's too much, baby's going to feel it. Right. And then if mom is really stressed going into birth, the chances are higher that mom has a stressful birth and a traumatic birth. So we have baby gets physical stressed C-section birth that comes with chemical stresses, or forceps or vacuum, right? And any dad specifically who has seen any of these births is like, yeah, that was a lot for the baby, right? Dads know what happened. They know what went down when those births, and moms like, they have a curtain up, they can't see it, everything that's going on. Like I had a baby come in recently, and mom, like we were talking about the stressful birth, and she's like, yeah, my husband kind of saw everything happen, and he said his neck just looked whacked, like very contorted and twisted after birth. Like, so dads have eyes on what's going on. So I'm actually going to ask them more often of like, what did you see? Because mom has other priorities.
Right.
Yeah. So birth trauma, right? We've just loaded the whole nervous system of a little baby with a lot of physical stress with birth trauma that has probably come with chemical stressors of what needs to happen to make mom also not experience birth trauma in a stressful birth. And then early challenges, right? Those kiddos that have really stressful births, they don't typically start life super easily, right? Often there's latch struggles, there's colic, there's reflux, constipation, and they're not growing out of that, and they're going into chronic illness, recurrent antibiotic usage because they're just always sick. And then we see behavior and ADHD, and then it goes on, right? Because we don't grow out of stress if there's not a way to get it out of our body. We just grow into other ways to express that stress that's developmentally appropriate, right?
Mm-hmm. And if I can add too, there is sometimes I feel like we talk about that pretty like picture perfect common story, but there's also the kid who never went through tantrums and meltdowns, who never got sick, who was just like perfect, and then all of a sudden isn't, right? So it just almost like catches mom off guard because we have this kid who is essentially unseen and unheard for a long time, and then all of a sudden they're just like melting down every second, and it's like, what happened? This came out of nowhere. And so I feel like we talk a lot about, the colic, the reflux. Maybe the baby wasn't as crying all the time, but what I like to tell parents, especially if you have a behavioral kid that kind of came out of nowhere, is it was brewing underneath of the surface, the body was just ignoring it until it couldn't ignore it anymore. And so I just like to add that in there, because sometimes it's like, well, my kid's not doing all these things and she wasn't a hard baby, and it's like, well, she probably should have been a little harder, right? Because she just wasn't acknowledging the stress of being a human. And so now we get to kind of see why maybe it's not registering for that baby or toddler now.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot with the teenagers that come into my office. Mom was like, they were great, and all of a sudden they're really struggling. It's like, well, guess what happened? Was it a big growth spurt that just added a bunch of chemical, emotional stress that just tipped the bucket? Or a big life change, right? Something that like might have seemed little and the rest of the family handled it well, and then their bucket was almost already full, and this additional stressor just kind of was the breaking point for their nervous system to start then expressing that stress. Yeah. All that to say, though, each layer of this and this tension of this stress, right, from these early challenges and birth trauma and prenatal stress, that's the layers that add stress to the nervous system until, like I said, like the bucket overflows or the system gets stuck, and then it's unable to regulate and calm down or adapt. And that's when you start to see the parenting techniques, whichever one you choose, isn't working, because they're no longer functioning in their prefrontal cortex, right? That is shut down and said, good night. We're going to just operate in fight or flight. And you can't reason in fight or flight.
Yeah, so you're essentially trying to build emotional regulation on a cracked foundation. And until that foundation, right, the nervous system is addressed, progress is going to stall. And so I always like to talk to my parents, when they bring in the behavioral kiddos who are dealing with meltdowns. I like to tell them to trust the process, because when it comes to behavior, we're dealing with 3 layers, essentially, right? We're dealing with the part of their brain that needs to listen and acknowledge the world around it. We're dealing with the part of their brain that needs to process said input. And then, the first one's input processing. And then we're dealing with the brain that has to give you a different output. And so that's kind of the vision of those apps, or those windows shutting everything down, because the brain is doing those 3 things at all times, right? It's like, I'm looking at things around me. I'm processing what I want to do with them. I'm giving you an output that I want, whether it's behavior, whether that's talking, whether that's a response of some sort. And something's happening to trip up one of that process. And when one of those processes in the nervous, this all happens in the nervous system, right? In the brain, when one of those processes is altered or stuck in stress mode, then it can't do any of that, right? And so the best way to communicate something is wrong is to just go berserk, right? And so that's essentially what your child is going through, is experiencing an issue with one of those things, or all of them, or, a combination. And that is why we kind of want to go into why traditional discipline is backfiring on you, right? Because punishments during a meltdown add fuel to the fire, right? That is an input. One, they can't even process the inputs you're giving them, right? Something tragic happened, and now they have to figure out what to do with it. Now they can't. Well, now they have a punishment. They also don't like the punishment. So that's another input that they have to process and overcome, right? So that's why punishments just kind of it makes the meltdown worse. Ignoring doesn't work, which, I feel like that's more my parenting strategy. I don't see it until you're done. But ignoring doesn't work either, right? Because then the child is then kind of stuck to figure things out on their own, right? It's like, I don't really know how to get myself out of this. If you ignore it, now I have another stressor or, trauma, because now I feel scared that I can't get out of it, right? So there's just a little bit, it almost adds like emotional dysregulation of whatever's going on.
And I want to remind moms too that we're not talking about tantrums. We're talking about shutdowns too, right? So different strategies for different brain situations. Yeah.
And different kids.
And different kids.
Like, you'll know when you try something and you're like, well, that did not work, right? Unfortunately, I feel like that's parenting in general, is just trial and error. So, punishments, it's up to you on how you want to parent, but I guess we don't use a ton of punishments. But like ignoring, if my daughter's doing something that she shouldn't be, oftentimes I ignore and it works. But if she's in a meltdown, it doesn't, right? Because then I have to help her get out of that. Obviously, I'm going to adjust her at that point, but you know what I mean. And then giving in. This is something I've talked to parents a lot, because now, and when you're giving in, this is an issue, is no longer the trigger, it's the nervous system shutdown, and you are now dealing with probably a tantrum combination. So a lot of times when I have my kiddos who the parents have been giving in all this time, there is this like buffer that tends to happen of like, okay, now I'm not sure this is a meltdown anymore. I think it's just a tantrum, because you like kind of like what Dr. Serena said earlier, right? It's like, well, they learned that screaming and hollering is going to get what they want. And so now they have a learned behavior on top of a meltdown, and it's just kind of a lot. So we're not trying to tell you how to parent, but I will say that's the hardest like pattern to overcome when a parent is just like, give them what they want, because now you're dealing with a few layers to come out of it.
Yeah.
Kids need boundaries and they need direction and they need guidance. So I would just, choose your battles wisely.
Yeah, you gotta mean what you say.
Yeah. Anyways,
also,
but meltdowns.
Can I just say I love that you said holler? That just made me happy.
Hey, thanks.
Quit your hollering.
Anyways.
People don't say that in Idaho.
They don't say it in Iowa either.
Oh, I mean, that's just like a Midwest thing. Anyways.
That's awesome. Anyways, meltdowns aren't choices. They're signals that your child's brain is begging for help regulating. And traditional strategies were built for behavior management, but your child needs neurological support, not just behavioral coaching. And so all these behavior coaches on Instagram and all these parent coaches, that they're fantastic. But if your child is stuck in their amygdala, stuck in fight flight, you are talking essentially to a
brick wall
that can also throw things.
You're talking to an amygdala with an arm.
A very aggressive wall.
Yeah, and here's some warning signs, right? Like how do we know that this is a tantrum versus a meltdown? So meltdowns, they're not coming out of nowhere. So we can watch for trying to reduce their sensory input so that they're covering their eyes or their ears to reduce noise or visual input because they're overwhelmed, right? Avoiding eye contact, that's a very fight or flight thing to do. Fidgeting or pacing, right? Like trying to get sensory input out of their body, right? And moving their body can help them get out of that fight or flight. Or sudden withdrawal or agitation, right? This is all ways that the brain is trying to like scoop water out of the bucket before it tips, right? But a lot of times it's not enough. Or, I mean, if they're doing all those things, like why is their bucket getting that full, right? So what's in their bucket and what is in their bucket is neurological stress and tension that's been held up in their neurospinal system. The chiropractic is really good at removing.
Yes. So I will say there is a little tidbit here that I want to just share it quickly, because it's like, okay, well, I can't just like, I'm in the grocery store, so what the heck?
Yeah. Like, do I just stop by?
Yeah, just drive by chiropractic. So just a couple things that you can do in times of this is to almost just like help them. So we just talked, avoiding eye contact, fidgeting, withdrawal, almost like helping them to continue, like helping them with the thing they're searching for, right? So if they are a fidgeter, we like to do tight squeeze, hug, right? Some sort of way to kind of get that feeling back into their body and out of their head. If they are, eye covering, then maybe it's a little bit too bright in there. So if you can go into like a darker room, less stimulation, quieter room, and also withdrawing, right? Sometimes my toddler is well adjusted, but we have had a couple meltdowns, and sometimes you just gotta leave the store and get what you need later. It's just not worth it. Yeah. So anytime you can withdraw, even if you just need to go to the car for a little bit and come back to it, it's just try and prioritize their safety, because it'll just go better for you, for all of you. And then make an appointment
for scans, right? Because then like what we can see is like your first appointment is we're scanning your kiddo to see, is there in fact a lot of stress held up in the nervous system? Are they stuck on the gas pedal, pushing their whole system into fight or flight? And if that's what shows up on the scans, like that should be really, what's the word?
Empowering?
Empowering. Yeah, that's a word, right? Like it's not you and it's not your kiddo. It's that they have a really wound up system that's filling up their bucket really fast. I just thought of what I could do to help a mom managing a meltdown at the store. So I could just take her cart. Like, hey, I'll guard your cart and I'll just go put it up front so you can just take your kid to where they need to go. Yeah. And I'll leave it with like at the front register area, like or lost, where they have like the return place. Yeah. Yeah. Customer support. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel like that'd be helpful because I'm like, what do I do with my cart? I like take this baby and then like my 4-year-old, like, okay, please follow me. And she'd be like, this sounds like a really good time to be difficult. Of course it is. Yeah. My mom used to take us to the bathroom. If we were really struggling, she'd be like, "We need to shape up. Go to the bathroom." Anywhere. At home. Or at a restaurant. Yeah. But that makes sense, right? It was a small, safe place.
Right.
Like there's less going on. There's less noise. There's less visual input. And then
just at home got me. That's really
yeah.
funny.
That was like our timeout spot. Cool down.
Okay, but yes, so once your child is scanned, we can then see, because sometimes behavior is just like a very interesting journey, because it could be something that's been going on since birth. It could be something that is just triggered recently, right? So the scans really truly tell us how deep and how wide, really, right, this problem has been going on, and you'll get to see, how soon we can help your child get out of it and kind of restore the connection to their brain so that they are no longer needing to shut down and they can process and adapt through whatever challenges or obstacles that they feel like they're facing.
Yeah. Mic drop.
So if you've ever walked through Target with tears in your eyes, I see you, Mama. And if you've ever Googled, "Why does my child melt down?" If you felt judged by strangers who just don't understand, we see you. Your child is not broken, and neither are you. You are not failing. You're just missing the right support system in the nervous system. So let us help you get answers. Schedule a scan at either Haven Health, Vessel Chiropractic, or any of the PX Docs offices. There are links below on how you can do that. And yeah, there's a reason for what you're seeing, and there's a real hope for what comes next.
I'll pray us out. Dear Lord, thank you for all of the babies and the children in the world. Thank you for the gifts that they bring us. And Lord, please send healing and hope in both to the parents of these kiddos who are struggling, so that the parents who know that there's lots of joy that their child could be bringing and having themselves is locked up because they're in fight or flight, Lord, heal them and guide them to a place that would be healing. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us on Motherhood, Aligned and Assigned.
We hope today's episode helped you connect the dots in your family's health journey.
Remember, this is where nervous system health meets motherhood wisdom.
Until next time, we're Dr. Veronica Schiltz
and Dr. Serena Coffman, supporting you as you nurture your family's well-being.
Because when you're aligned, everyone thrives.